You've tuned in to Prepare, Defend, Lead. I am your host, Joe Prim. As we prepare to celebrate Thanksgiving this week in the United States, it's a perfect time to talk on the topic of gratitude. So stick around, and I'll catch you on the other side of the intro.
The comfort and distractions of today collide to indulge our desires and provide a slow death by apathy. A superior primitive ethos exists. Prepare for tomorrow. Defend what you value and lead those you love. This mindset is the foundation of living an authentic life as a bold, disciplined man resolute in your mission. Prepare, defend, lead. Your mission. Own it.
All right, here we go once again with another episode of PDL. Thanks for inviting me to come along on your commute or wherever you are at on this beautiful day. In this episode, I want to dig into gratitude as a way of life, not just a list. It's easy to be thankful for the good things in life. Anyone can say that they are grateful for their health, their home, and their family. But if you really want to leverage gratitude in your life, you will need to dig deeper to become grateful for even the difficult and challenging times in your life. 2 keys to living a life of gratitude. Number 1, open your mind to the realization that out of difficulty grow the best things in life. To illustrate this point, as I was writing up these notes for this podcast, my son was in the background playing video games. And as he's grown a little bit older, he started to move away from playing some of the simpler, easier games into games that are more of a challenge. And as he was getting challenged in this level, he was getting frustrated by the fact that he was needing to repeat the same level over and over several times in order to get through that level. And I explained to him the reality of exactly what I'm talking about here. That it's that difficulty, it's that challenge, it's the hard fight that you go through that makes finishing or accomplishing the goal that much sweeter. And he kind of argued with me a little bit and wasn't sure that he agreed. And I reminded him, well, why do you think that you are playing these games now that are more of a challenge? Why do you feel so much more excitement when you do finish a level? And I encouraged him to keep trying, to try the level again. As I was finishing up my notes, he accomplished and finished the level. And as he finished the level, one of the first times I've ever heard him cheer for himself because he was so excited that he had passed the level. This illustrated exactly the point that I was writing down in my notes at that very moment. The harder the challenge, the more difficult it is. The longer the tunnel, the sweeter the light on the other end. And so often we get narrow-minded and we're only looking for the good things and the easy things to be grateful for in our life, when the reality is, if we can embrace even the hardships and even the difficulties, the challenges, the risks, the sacrifices, and see where they could possibly lead, even if we can't tell at that moment. Because without the darkness, we can't celebrate the sunrise. Without having work that you do regularly, a vacation just isn't as sweet. Ask anybody on unemployment, right? Perfect example is the first Thanksgiving that we've traditionally been celebrating, and thinking back to the early pilgrims. They went through hardships and challenges and difficult times. And that first Thanksgiving was a time of gratitude because of what they had accomplished and the fact that they had enough food to make it through the coming winter, that they had succeeded in their hard work and in their efforts that they had put in. You know, this year for us, for a lot of people, have been stalled out because of COVID and different mandates, and struggled and gone through difficult times and been stuck in depression or been sucked into habits of sedation as they try to figure out and sort out what this world looks like to them and the direction that they need to go in at this point. And for us, for my family, for me, we have just continued plowing forward at an accelerated speed. And I think because so many people and so many things around us have slowed down, that it's actually made our progression and our movement forward seem that much more rapid because of what's going on around us. And one of the big things that we went through this year and parts of last year was building this home down here in Texas. And I will tell you, it was a challenge. And the challenge and the struggle was not just waiting for this house to be built. It wasn't just having the patience to wait for something to happen that we had no control of. Yes, sure, that was a part of it, but we also had other challenges. Getting the financing on the short amount of time that we were down here was a difficulty. It was a challenge. My wife spent lots of time on the phone, working the phones and talking to people, having conversations in order to work some of these things out. As it ended up, we moved the day we signed the papers to move into this house. We had no electricity, we had no well, and we had no septic. So no indoor plumbing, no water, and no electricity. But we were fully prepared and committed to move into this house no matter what the challenges or obstacles were, because this is where we were going to make our home. Now, by some miracle, the day that we moved in, the moving truck was completely unpacked. I went out to run some errands, and as I went out to run some errands, the electric company showed up, dropped the poles in the ground, and hooked up our electric. So we never lived here without electricity. But we did live here for 2 or 3 months with no indoor plumbing and no water. Now, how did we do that? We brought in water, and we had a porta-john outside of the house. Now, were these challenges? Were they things that many people would never do? Challenges that others would never accept? Challenges and difficulties that other people would hold their nose at? Especially with the porta-john? Yeah, for sure. But we were committed. And when we committed to move in here, and it ended up 2 or 3 months before we had indoor plumbing and had our well dug, we did not know how long it would be. We did not have a timeline. Things are slow here in this area where we live in Texas because things are so busy with construction. Getting a true timeline and getting things lined up and in order was a challenge. But it was a challenge that we took on. But can you imagine how sweet the day was when that well was hooked up? Can you imagine the joy and the happiness of being able to take the first warm shower in this house? Can you imagine the joy and the happiness and the elation in this family, in this house, when we no longer needed a porta-john and needed to go outside to use the facilities regularly? It was amazing. But that challenge, that difficulty is something that we will always have as a family. It is something that we will talk about for the rest of our lives, how we made it through that challenge, how we survived through that struggle, how we also learned that we can make it through difficult times. That challenges that would drive other people crazy or cause other people to complain or into despair or into panic actually strengthened our resolve to make it through. Now, I am not saying that it is easy to open your mind and to accept with gratitude the difficulties that you're facing in your life today. But I am telling you, you have the power to completely change things around if you can change the way that you look at things. If you can look at things with the realization that the difficulty, the struggle, the risks, the sacrifices that you are making today are going to build you and make you closer and closer to the person, to the man that you want to be tomorrow. But again, that is your choice. The things that are going on in your life today will make you a better man or a bitter man. But again, that falls back on to you. If you can open your mind to this idea of gratitude and you can embrace with gratitude even the hard times, even the difficulties as opportunities, you will thrive. Number 2, open your mind to the inner dialogue in your mind and how it is shaping your attitude and gratitude minute by minute. I am a fairly cognizant person of the inner dialogue that's going on in my mind. In fact, I've had several occasions in my life where I had all out, straight up arguments back and forth in my mind of my logic mind versus the inner dialogue going back and forth and straight up battling. So I'm something that I think about regularly. I just finished up an audio book by Tom Shea with the title Unbreakable. In this book, he really digs deep into the idea of the dialogue in your mind and how it can rob your strength, your position, and your attitude and completely change who you are and what you are doing in your life. But the more cognizant you can be of that voice, the more you will realize that you have the power to shape that voice or to listen to that voice or to realize what that voice is all about and the consequences that that voice is having in your life. Definitely would recommend that book. I think before the end of this year, I will put out a podcast on my favorite books of the year. I am sure that will end up on the list. But for me, an example of this is last Friday could not have gone better for me in a lot of ways than it went. But there was this inner dialogue, there was this fight in my mind, this bad attitude about everything that was going on. Now, I could go through a list and list out all the good things that were happening that day, and I could list out a list of the bad things that went on that day, and the good things would have far outweighed the bad. But for some reason, in my mind was just very upset. Part of it was I had an issue with my truck, but that was not enough to tip the scales in that direction. And I remember as the day went on, reminding myself over and over and over again, I have things to be grateful for here. Why am I upset? Why am I frustrated? This day could not be going better than it's going. So the more cognizant you can become of that voice that's constantly talking to you in the back of your mind, the more control that you can take from it, the less you can listen to it, the more that you can steer it and direct it, the better off you will be. So as we roll into Thanksgiving, let's take a deeper look at ourselves and the role that gratitude plays in our lives, how we grow and how we interact with those we love in gratitude. I hope that this thought as we go into Thanksgiving will deepen the way that you look at gratitude from becoming just a list of things on a piece of paper or just a list of things that you talk about or give thanks for as you do your family prayer at Thanksgiving dinner, but that you will grasp the idea of gratitude as a way of life. And I ask if you like what's going on here with PDL, with this podcast, that you would write a review, share this podcast, and help move this mission forward as we focus on you. From time to time, I have guests on this podcast, and we speak on many different topics. But when I am on this podcast, my goal, my idea, the mission of this podcast truly is to help you to realize the change that you can make in your life. There are a lot of crazy things going on in the world, a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to complain about, a lot of people to call names, a lot of people to laugh at, but the reality is you have very little, if any, control over most of what is going on outside you. You have complete and total control over your attitude and the way that you go about your life. Now, outside of you, you have some influence on your wife, and you can have the opportunity to have some great and powerful influence on your children. And maybe you have some influence in your congregation or in your community. And as you build out from there, you have less and less influence and less control. So rather than look at and complain about all the things in this world that you don't have any control over, look at the man that's in the mirror and realize how much control you have over what you do, where you go, what your attitude is, the way that you look at things, the way that you treat other people, the way that you speak, the way that you serve those that you love and those in your community. What are you doing to make the world a better place? What are you doing to contribute to raising up your children and your children's friends and your friends and neighbors and members of your congregation and community? What are you contributing? I see so many podcasts out there. I see so many social media posts out there that are driven by this idea of complaining and bitching about things for which you have no control. You have control over yourself. You have control over where you're going to go, what you're going to do on a minute-by-minute basis. Go out and make a difference. Go out and be an example of what you think or what these other people should be living like. Go be an example for your children, for your wife, for your neighbors, and for those in your family that you care about. Lead by example. This is the whole premise behind my coaching program, Heroes Wanted, is the idea that there is within you a hero. And I know there is because I know as a boy you dreamed about it. You thought about it. It consumed you when you were out playing with your friends, with the neighbor kids. You and them played as heroes. You were saving the day. You read comics. You looked up to many different people as role models in your life because you saw what they did and you wanted to emulate that and be like them. And somewhere along the line, those dreams and aspirations of becoming something more get sucked out of you. And they get buried by years of lies and fears and expectations of those around you that are satisfied as can be to keep you 1 or 2 steps below your full potential as they see it. Because the higher you go, the better off you become, the smarter you are, the more happier you are, the more enjoyment you receive out of life, the more frustrated they get. So they do their best to hold you down and keep you small. I believe in that hero within you. I believe that there are embers glowing deep down within you that just need some fuel to build back up again. My goal with this podcast, with my book, Open 6 Life-Changing Principles, with everything that I am doing here with PDL, is to fuel that fire, that it would rage inside of you, that it would burn with an intensity that draws the good, wise, righteous people to you for warmth and protection, while at the same time causing dread and fear of those who are hiding in the darkness as you brighten up the world around you. If you want to be a part of what's going on here, if you want to grow, if you see yourself as being able to make a difference in this world by focusing on yourself and by focusing on growing yourself and being an example to others, join in. Share this podcast. Read my book. Leave a review. Look into the coaching program. Find a way to get involved and contribute and grow. You were meant for more. You were given from the day you were born, from the day you were created, to be something much more than where you are at this moment. This life, the way that it is set up in this modern world, sucks the life out of you and rewards apathy. Don't fall for it. Fight your way out of the sedation and into becoming what you were created to be. As always, hold fast, men, and God bless.